calm, focus, happiness. Hey, Mindful Tribe. I'm here today with a disruptor. She is a disruptor. That's how she kind of paints the picture of herself. She's into neurocognitive leadership behavior and connection skills. She's all about critical relationship dynamics. She's done a lot of very fascinating things. She's a multi-million dollar medical staffing corporation founder. That's a mouthful. She works in autism services as a specialist, or she has. We're going to find out about a lot of these things as we talk. I'm here today with Tressa Yonekawa Bundren. Tressa, are you in mindfulness mode today?
I am in, yes. Yes, it can be so simple. Yes, I'm in mindfulness mode today. And I started out that way, like I start every day in gratitude, getting centered, and then entering the day and inviting, welcoming what we're here for.
Well, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And you were introduced to me by Steve Sims over at the Archangel Summit in Toronto. And that's exciting because Steve is somebody I've had on my show, and he's an amazing person. We were just chatting about that. And you are an amazing person. So let's talk about mindfulness. What does mindfulness mean to you?
Everything. And I'm going to say that in over 25 years of working with leaders and their families, their spouses and their families typically, as well as their teams and their boards, that one thing that comes to fruition with mindfulness is that when we can have that base, that center, everything else becomes more clear and maybe not more easy, but definitely more clear, more purposeful, more impactful.
Yeah, it really does become more clear because, it's not a good feeling when your life feels jumbled. That's the thing. And mindfulness can make everything have more clarity. That's
Definitely. And when you talk about that jumble, we're in a time in our lives right now when things are very jumbled. And have we ever not been? I'm not sure. But it feels like people aren't really sure of what next steps are, what the value and purpose of life is, what, the reason that we're here. And mindfulness can really bring us to that kind of centering and that presence in a very powerful and immediate way.
I want to ask you, Tressa, why do you call yourself a disruptor? What's that about?
Yes, thank you for asking. The word disruptor or disruption has been used in different ways, especially recently. And it's been used, I think, typically to say that we're connecting with people in a different way, that we're using marketing or other sources to to show people or convince people that we're relatable. So disruptor to me means that we're taking it back to, really ancient technology that is almost too simple for us to comprehend because our brains want to solve problems. Mindfulness and disruption to me, and I don't often use mindfulness when I talk to corporate leaders. Either honestly, they don't want to hear it or they've heard it too much.
Sure.
So it's been a buzz. When I talk about mindfulness, I use words like strategy, purpose, presence, meaning, and it all is the same thing. When we can be disruptive in our own patterns, to take a look at what is true for us and what we can do better, then we start turning the dial. Then we start making steps toward changing the world. If that's our purpose and meaning in life. And I think that all of us can and maybe even should hold that as a primary purpose.
You've written a book called Listen Leader: How to Be the Leader We Want to Follow. Tell us about that book and what took you to the place of deciding to write it.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you. And it's kind of embarrassing because I was a bad boss. I had
Mm,
had, leadership in my life and bad bosses in my life, and I went the route of what I thought society determined as successful. So I micromanaged. I did all the things wrong. So what led me to that was, several years of failure, of doing the wrong thing, of having a team come to me and say, we get what you're trying to do here. We believe in your purpose. We want to contribute, but we don't really like you. So either you change how you're leading us or we're leaving. And immediately went into a spin and needed to look at my patterns and how I could do it differently and better. And what came about with that and the whole basis of Listen Leader is what I learned for myself and then what I learned from consulting with other leaders for over 2 decades.
That's very interesting. And so, what are some of the main themes in that book that you share?
Yeah, I think, listening is part of presence and part of mindfulness. When we can really hear each other and active listening, not just, okay, I've taken some notes, about what you said or the words that you used, but actively listening, which is whole self listening, we can be more engaged. People trust us more. There's appropriate vulnerability. We don't know all the answers. Let's admit that we don't know all the answers. Let's ask for help where we need help so that we can have better outcomes. Let's be visionary in the ways of being in right action, which, is not always the easiest thing to do, to continually stand up for what is right. This all, leads us to being inclusive, and that in itself is a mindfulness practice.
Yeah, it really is. I know that you've done work in autism services specialist. Can you tell us about some of that work that you've done and how you may have used mindfulness in that work?
Absolutely. I think the whole foundation of all my work is mindfulness and being present and really just paying attention to what's happening for each individual person, whether that be, reading a room of 2,000 people in an audience from a stage, which I love to do also, or one-on-one with adults or children. One of the things that I found working with people who are on the spectrum, who have neurodivergence, is that we're all just people. And some of the most brilliant ideas have come from people on the spectrum because they think differently. And when you can think differently and not be in the boxes that society creates for us, when you can look at um, core, soul, heart, full presence, integrity, rather than society integrity, we can get different answers rather than repeating being on the hamster wheel. And, I mean, Elon Musk was talking on, I think, Saturday Night Live about being on the spectrum. When you look at what's possible, when you look at what's happening now, then that lets us be mindfully present and in connection communication now, rather than groping for an outcome that we think we need to have. So when I'm working with parents who have children who are on the spectrum, we're not looking at, you know, 10 years from now. We're looking at how this young human being communicates and needs to be communicated with in order to get the concepts that they're going to need as they get older. So what does that mean? It's different. It's just it can be vastly different. Sometimes kids are engaged by sensory stimulus, sometimes with a lack of sensory stimulus. Some kids need really quiet spaces with appropriate low lighting. What is it that this human being needs in this moment to optimize their outcomes? And that's being a leader also. So I think, parenting is a huge place of leadership. And can we be leaders at every level in whatever we do? Absolutely. Parenting, partnering, life, work, and love. Um, we can be leaders in all those areas from a place of mindfulness.
Well, we really can. And I really agree with what you say. I think that we need to be way more willing and able to connect with those who are on the spectrum. And I want to ask you, do you feel as though corporations are getting on this a little bit more, that they're more willing to look at people who are on the spectrum and realize that because they are creative in a different way and see the world in a different way, they can really provide new insight for them?
I think there are pockets that's happening. I think more than that, what we're seeing is that people are um, identifying that they're masking and understanding the rationale behind that, finding places that fit them better and that they fit into better or best, where they can most contribute and be contributed to. And, any kind of situation, work, or relationship of any kind, um, is a conversation, is a dialogue. It's not a monologue. So I think we have more people standing up and saying, listen, I know these things about me. Here's what I need in order to be optimally successful. And they find those things or request those things. And that I'm really excited to see that. And I'm excited to see that many places, many leaders, and many corporations are responding favorably.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're seeing that as well. I want to ask you about some of the emotions that people are experiencing who really are struggling to move forward. And of course, the fundamental emotion is fear. How can we move forward when we feel like we are just blocked by the fear that is rooted in our soul?
Hmm. Well, this again is going to sound almost too easy for our brains, but we need to slow down, pause, the primal pause, take a breath, just let our nervous system come into more ease so we are able to make brilliant choices. When we are groping for choices out of fear, um, typically we're going to do things that we wouldn't do from a place of stasis, from a place of calm, from a place of full presence and aliveness. When we are in purpose or in flow, typically, if we make a mistake, fine. But when we come from fear, there's this different characteristic in our brains, in our whole bodies, that says you're going to fail. You have to get this right. Let's do this. And nobody makes good choices from that place. So fear, is helpful. Like, it can save our lives, um, and it can push us to really go in. But if we don't go in and find that place of mindfulness, of gratitude, of presence, of pause, to take that breath to make the choice, we can miss out on some pretty amazing aspects of life.
Tessa, I want to take you back to Tessa. Oh, Tressa. Tressa. Now I got to get your name right here, for heaven's sake. Sorry about that.
I'll answer to anything,
I'll
Bruce. It's
just cut that out. Tressa, I want to take you back to when you were 7 years old, a child, and just let's look at you at that time, a typical day. Was there anything foreshadowing that you would do some of the amazing things that you came to do in your life?
My mom was an administrator at Stanford, and she would take me to work with her very often. And at 7 years old, I was a youth volunteer, typically at the places where she worked, which were hospital rehabilitation kinds of situations. And one of those places, right at that 7, 8 year mark, we moved to Montana, and she was working in basically a large state-run school for people with cognitive disabilities. And so some of my first friends growing up at Stanford and also there um, had very different physical, emotional, and mental ability. And so was there something? Yeah, I mean, I felt like I could communicate with people who didn't have language. I felt like, as a child, that we had a something in common, just to be human. And that led to, my degrees, which are in communication and communication disorders, because I've always been fascinated with what connection can do, and it really can change the world. It can light up a room. It can change the energy. Connection, our intention with connection and presence, can change our relationships. And so that's power.
It truly is. Yes. I want to ask you about bullying. I want to ask you if you have a story about bullying where mindfulness would have made a difference.
Yeah, I think, first I want to say that I definitely was bullied. And ran around with what people might call like the popular group of kids. And even so, I now I know from research in neurocognition that there was a study done, I think, in 2008, University of Chicago, where they identified that people who identified as bullies, when they're watching video of bullying or of pain happening to people, that their amygdala would light up. Whereas people who did not identify as bullies, their like prefrontal cortex and the temporal parietal area would light up. Now, the amygdala is fight or flight and reward, right? So that's what lights up, was lighting up in bullies. And the prefrontal cortex and this temporal parietal area are the areas of self-regulation in non-bullies. So I want to say that there are um, different ways that our brains function. Can we learn how to do things better? Absolutely. The instance that I remember so vividly of being bullied as a child was riding the bus home, and there was a older boy, big kid, who just always was alone, and he would like throw things at those of us who were younger and kind of push us over and tell us to get out of the seat, but that was his seat. And he lived out close to me, so we would drop him off first and then head to my house. And one day, like, I could just see that he was sad, and I just was like, here's what I said, are you okay? And not from a place of being in his face, but just like, I'm concerned about you, are you okay? And he stopped, and he never bullied anybody on that bus again. He didn't say a word.
Wow.
But that's the power, and I learned really young that if we can be in compassion, does it always work? No. But does it work a lot of times if somebody doesn't feel that they're like on stage or trying to save face, or that kind of thing? If we can just have that moment of connection, it makes us both human. It lets that person know that we see them. And can that go really wrong? Absolutely. I mean, he could have turned around and done whatever, but he, in that moment, something happened, something changed. I hope he felt seen, and I hope that whatever was going on in his home to create the situation for him to be that way, I hope that he realized that he didn't have to live like that as he grew up.
Oh, yeah. What a great story. Wow. As we move forward in the interview, Tressa, I want to ask you 5 quick answer questions. So just 30-second answers are perfect. First one is this: who's one person who has been a powerful mindfulness influence to you?
Right now, Steve D. Sims, and he's been on your podcast, and I highly recommend that people listen to that. I've listened to it 2 or 3 times now. He is someone who is really big in the world, and really is so kind and so compassionate, and really wants people to change the world, and really helps people do that.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable person with some of the things he's done in life. You just can't believe it. So inspiring, so incredible. Yeah, I agree with you. My second question is about emotions and about how mindfulness has helped you deal differently with your emotions.
Every single day, Bruce. There's I have choices every single day that I get to make in better ways because I get present. Am I ever triggered? Absolutely. But far less often, and in far less like harmful, self-harmful, and otherwise harmful ways in the world.
Wow, yeah. My next question is about breathing. Share with us a little bit about breathing and how it relates to mindfulness in your life.
Let's all just take a breath together
Yes.
and notice, what difference does it make in our lives and in the world? It can change everything. When I've been in an argument with my partner, one thing that he has done that has been profound is he'll just stop and open his palms toward me and say, I just love you. And it's hard to scream into that void of love and calm and breath.
I like that. That is amazing. Well, I'm just going to ask you about a book. If there's a book that you can recommend that is related to mindfulness.
Related to mindfulness, I think that we want to tie mindfulness to success, because I think that a lot of people feel like mindfulness is passive. Mindfulness is active. We make the choice to be mindful, and then we keep coming back to it as a practice. Keep coming back to it, keep coming back to it. Um, there are so many. I mean, I've been working with Steve now for so long, and listening to Bluefishing um a few weeks ago again brought back that we can be successful in mindful ways. We can have what we want, we can create what we want, and we can show up for that every day. And that to me is a beautiful part of mindfulness and success and impact.
Yes, it really is. Is there an app that helps you with mindfulness?
You know, Calm is one there. Um, I probably use some of the music apps more than anything
Hmm.
to have binaural beats and the different frequencies. When I sleep, I sometimes have that in my ears on wired headphones, not on wireless headphones, um, for several reasons, but on wired headphones, a lot of times to just bring me into that state of clear sleep, clear ease, and I'll use ocean waves
Hmm.
when I'm working, um, just to keep me present.
I love the sound of ocean waves. I love the sound of rain and a storm. It just gives me so much calm and peace. I don't know why exactly, but
And it doesn't matter, find what works for you. Whatever, like gray noise. A lot of people are talking about white noise, music, whatever that is. And I use different sound for different aspects of my life. So
yeah. I'm curious about, you said wired headphones. Do you avoid wireless?
I have them. I use them sometimes. They make me a little bit dizzy, to be honest. I'm not sure what that's about, but I have some friends who are neurologists who say that with the advent of cellular phones and all of our technology, they're seeing more brain tumors, benign and not benign, show up on in the side of the head that you hold your phone to. So to basically never hold a phone up to your head, and that we're not really sure about what wireless technology does inside our head that close to our brain.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I feel that myself. Like I feel I don't want to be around a microwave oven because I can feel it in my head. I can, in my brain or something. And same thing with a cell phone. I feel like, oh, this does not feel good. I can feel that sensation. And I always like to shut off my like phone to put it on airplane mode at night and that kind of thing so that I feel like there's less chance of that affecting my brain.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely rely on science for those things. And also you trust yourself. Like
Mm.
you say, if you're feeling it, um, take steps to mitigate it. But science is telling us that, if birds are dropping dead in 5G, um, that's probably not so great for us. So we use the technology. We love the technology. I love the technology. I rely on it. And yeah, again, be mindful about it.
Yeah, for sure. Tressa, it's been so great to have you on the show. Do you have a final word of advice for someone listening and just feeling as though maybe they'd like to have a little more mindfulness in their life and a little bit more groundedness, which we're feeling from you today on this interview?
Bruce, I would say unequivocally, as leaders at every level, show up, be present. Anytime you cross through any doorway, threshold, get in and out of a vehicle, a train, whatever that is, zip up your presence. Like, be fully present, be fully alive, and step into life this way. And be open to the magic that happens when we're fully here and fully connected.
Thanks for that. And thanks for being on Mindfulness Mode, Tressa.
Bruce, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure too. All the best to you. Bye now. Hey, Mindful Tribe. Are you experiencing anxiety? Are you experiencing stress and tension and feeling as though, it's just difficult to move on? That describes the clients I work with. Clients who have had an awful lot of problem with anxiety and stress and maybe some kind of habits that are holding them back. And through hypnosis, we get to the bottom of it. We get right in there and we talk about it. But with hypnosis, we get right into what is causing some of this in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind represents about 90 to 95% of your thoughts. And you don't even realize what those thoughts are much of the time. And through hypnosis, we can get in there and we can work at this. Doesn't mean we're going to change what's going on in your subconscious mind. It means we're going to become more aware of it and then deal with it and think of it differently in the conscious mind. And I am so happy to have helped so many people with their anxiety through hypnosis and coaching. And you could be the next person. If you're listening to this episode and you would like to let go of some of this anxiety, send me an email, bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. Put coaching session in the subject line, coaching session, send it to bruce@mindfulnessmode.com. And I would love to have you on a Zoom call for a free session where we can talk about what's going on and what's happening and how can I help you. Because that's one thing I truly know about myself, is that I really love helping other people, and I would love to help you. So thanks for listening. Take what we've learned today to reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness. Stay in the mode.